Donna is the Executive Vice President of National Sales for CMI Companies. CMI is just deep in the weeds on, they have truckers, they're trying to bring ship cargo in, trying to keep their staff safe, and she has some really interesting insights into what's happening in trying to move goods and services. So with that, Donna, thank you so much for joining us, and would love to pass it over to you for a few minutes.
Thank you, Courtney. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, our company absolutely is grassroots level. We have about 2,000 drivers in our fleet. And so what we do, we are a drayage provider on the international supply chain for importers and exporters. And so basically on the front line, I want to share just for a few minutes what COVID-19, the impact to the supply chain at a grassroots level, and maybe just give you through our lens some perspective of what we're seeing. Every day is dynamic. Every day we come to work, we have a new challenge. But let me give you some background if I can. First of all, our sector, like all transportation sectors, has been granted essential status. And while there is some confusion over, are my goods essential? The truth is that all transportation workers in the maritime industry, the rail industry, and the motor carrier industry have been granted essential status. Why? Because the international supply chain is a system. And we're so grateful to have, our other mode of transportation, of course, being air. But when we look at the maritime industry, it is a very bulky, fragmented industry. And so the good news, our ports are open across the United States, from our East Coast to our Gulf to our West Coast. Those gateways are open. Our railroads are open. And our motor carriers are working. So what are we seeing? What happened several weeks ago, when we were at the height of the crisis in China, in Wuhan specifically, many of our ocean carriers just canceled sailings, blanketly canceled sailings. We do see a push with 50% of Chinese workers coming back on. We do see a push of this freight to the United States, China representing maybe 30% of the import trade that we're talking about. You're going to ask me about medical supplies. What's challenging is that when these medical supplies that were already in the system moving, and the transit time to the West Coast, roughly 8 days, or transit time to the West Coast, 31 days, takes a very, very long time. So in comes this import freight. We have seen a drastic lull in freight. Now, we are seeing cancellations at origin. We're seeing more cancellation by our major ocean carriers of global trade lanes across the spectrum. And so our drivers, it's a personal issue too. We're all taking precautions that are necessary for the safety of our people, our dock workers, everyday precautions, because in our business, there's still so much tactical exchange, believe it or not, of paperwork. So that's a whole nother subject. But what we're seeing are very low volumes. And what we are seeing for the freight that has come in from this bump that I talked about, when these manufacturing facilities did come back online, what we're seeing is that our workers and our warehouses are not coming to work. And as a result, much of the freight that is arriving in the United States today is sitting idle on our docks. Not all of it, but I mentioned that we have a system in transportation. And so what our left and our right hands do impact each other. And so you'll be reading about major shippers across the country struggling with detention and demurrage at our ports because they're gridlocked and they can't move. Remember what happens in our ports, we've got this huge, vast country that moves inland. And we move inland via double stack trains from our East Coast and our West Coast, and also from our Gulf into the interior. Chicago, Memphis, Dallas, Kansas City, they haven't yet felt the ramifications of this serious impact yet. For us, we operate 48 terminals across the US. They're asking us, where is it? It's coming. So it's coming. The issue of food, how do we help? Well, remember that as drayage providers for the international community, we have a very strong segment of agriculture that we serve. What's happening to our perishables? We're fortunate in the United States, we're the breadbasket to the world. We're so fortunate. We can feed ourselves. We can go to the grocery. We can buy food. But what's happening to our U.S. exports now, today, there's no equipment coming in to serve the export community. And there's no imports coming in, no exports going out. And so we're tremendously challenged. I will tell you again that the infrastructure, the supply chain is a link. It is linked. And so we have a responsibility to each other to see how we can streamline communication. And so right now we are working with the Federal Maritime Commission. You will see today they came out with a mission basically to look at how we can provide solution in the supply chain. And I'll be working on that team. I'd like to introduce you to Rebecca Dye. She is the Federal Maritime Commissioner who heads this team effort. And so anyway, that's a quick perspective, down and dirty. I got a note on Friday. We are very heavily involved in the movement of chemicals, which is also granted essential status. From our Houston team, we had over 100 drivers looking for work on Friday. And so now I'm delighted to be a part of this team. We're here to see how we can connect and how we can help. What can we do is the question. What do we need to do differently? So I appreciate the few minutes to give you some perspective on what's happening on the maritime side, what's happening at the grassroots level, and also an opportunity to say, how do we look at this a little bit differently and what can we do? So that's what I got.